Hi guys, Alex here from Team Flapske coming at you with my Darkworld deck list. Okay guys, so let's get into it, starting out with 3 Grapha. Some people opt to play 2, I play 3. If you want to play 2 you can, a lot of this is up to personal opinion. Then next up I got 3 Rainbow. Some people play 1, some people play 2, I play 3. I like 3, it searches Grapha, it searches Silva in this deck list. I'm not playing things like gold. Yep. Triple Ganta, Ganta searches gates. I have seen no one play less than 3, it's just an obvious inclusion. I play double Silva. My first turn I want a hand loop. A lot of Darkworld boards are currently playing the hand loop with Necromana King. I'm not playing that. I found it bricky in testing. Also, for the Necromana King to resolve, for those of you who know, you need to have Grapha. Now, very funnily, Grapha does not stop quick play spells and Grapha does not stop normal field spells. So in some instances, say you play against Runic, you just do nothing with your Necromana King, you'll just get blown out. So your whole turn 1 combo does nothing. Runic is meta right now together with Thea, so I would not play the Necro combo at this moment in time. I find it bricky, I find it not very good. A lot of people will lose to Lava Golem, Dark Ruler in the main, things like Forbidden Droplet. Because if you build Grapha plus, let's say, an Abyss Dweller and an Appaloosa, then you just die to Forbidden Droplet. If your opponent droplets you for 3, then you're just gonna lose that game, especially in a tier matchup. And in a Runic matchup, they can just activate Fountain, use Destruction, pop your Grapha, do whatever they want to do. So this is why I'm not playing the Necromana King combo. I am opting to go first, I am opting to use the Silvas to hand loop my opponent, bounce the Silva back, keep on going. 1 Brow at the moment, I am contemplating cutting this. It's only a draw 1 and in some instances draw 2. I almost never get the draw 2 effect unless I'm in a pinch. Might opt to cut this and I'll explain in a bit why. 1 Ceruli, I'm not playing 2, some people play 2. I find 2 to be bricky. This deck has a high brick potential, so I would not play 2. I would not test playing 2. If you want to, you can. It would make the going first hand loop a bit more consistent, but I have so many ways to bounce this Ceruli that I really don't think that you should. I'll show in a bit why. Triple Snow searches any Darkworld card, usually. For me that is at least. If I don't already have Ganta, this card just searches Ganta for me so I can get to my gates and get going. If not, it's probably just Ascension, and if you just have everything you just grab something like a library, which we'll get to in a bit. Danger Package, 2 Bigfoot, 3 is too much, 1 is too less. 1 Thunderbird, I hate Thunderbird, but we have to play it. It's either this or you play the snake, and I dislike the snake because the snake is just, it's a level 3, it doesn't do much on its own if it gets discarded. This does have some things in synergy with being level 8. Destroying back row is sometimes fine if you're going second. 2 Nessie. You could run 3 if you really want to. I'm just running 2 at the moment. It's been fine. I've not have yet needed a 3rd Nessie. But again, this is all subject to your own opinions. You could also not run dangers if you want to, but I feel the Darkworld deck lacks discards. Chupacabra Reborn's a danger, and is a danger, and Jackalow because it summons anything from deck, so it can get you into your rank 8 as well if you have to, or just be link material. Not playing Ogopogo. I dislike Ogopogo, just again a personal preference. This list is 40 cards, the main deck is pretty tight, so 2 Mothman. Sometimes you have to unbrick and use the graveyard effect of Mothman, and it hurts every time you do it because you're just giving your opponent advantage at that point. But yeah, don't really know. You couldn't really cut it, is the problem with it. I would really like to cut dangers so that I have less RNG ways of discarding, but there just isn't a good discard outlet. Because things that are good discard outlets are things like this Salamander Catalyzer, excuse me. It's great, it guarantees you your discard of a fiend, and then summons itself or the monster, or a different monster by discarding itself. You almost always summon this and use it for a rank 4 play. Problem with this, and why I'm only playing one, is that it's hard once per turn. None of the dangers have that restriction, and you really need to keep going in your turn. You really need to draw into your good stuff. So that's why only the one. Some people play 2, you could do it, but any hand that you see 2 of this is just brick. And every time after you use it, if you draw it, it's just mega brick. Then an expensive occlusion that you don't have to use. I borrowed these from a friend. It was that I had them, else I would not have been playing them. If you want to go great but a bit more budget, I would go into say 3 Magnum Mud and a Druid's Worm, so a Bestial package. Or you could just straight out replace it by stuff like Trade-In, which is a decent option, or stuff like Main Deck Dynamiscus. I will be swapping this out as soon as my friend gets his copies back. Now my strange inclusion. 3 Fairy Tale Luna. Bit of explanation here. On normal summon, Fairy Tale Luna adds Fairy Tale Luna, so it refreshes your hand. This deck doesn't have very many normal summons. Actually, you pretty much have none, because the ones that you can normal summon, the dangers, they don't do anything. Sometimes you will do it to bounce them back to hand, but it almost never happens. So this is a great normal summon. It has a quick effect. It can bounce itself and an opponent's card. This can be great going second, bouncing extra deck monsters back into the deck. But even more importantly, you can bounce back your opponent's, or the Cerulli that you give to your opponent. So you discard a card, you use a discard effect, and you give your opponent Cerulli. It doesn't matter where it happens in the turn, but the Cerulli will then summon itself to your opponent's field. Then, if your opponent does not have Cerulli in deck, which most of the time I assume they won't have, you can use Fairy Tale Luna to bounce back the Cerulli and the Luna to your own hand. So you can recycle your Cerulli as well as have 2 Luna on hand for either being a discard outlet so that you don't hit your dangers, or just generic follow-up for the next turn. I found that at the latest local, this was absolutely great. This was amazing. Fairy Tale Luna was the MVP card of my deck. Going second, it could bounce Fairy Tale, extra deck cards, and going first, I used it a lot to bounce Cerulli. In some instances, I've even made Sir Yugia summon this from my hand and then bounce the Cerulli and the Luna so that I can keep on going. Because sometimes with Sir Yugia, you'll draw cards and you'll draw into this, which is absolutely fine. You can just special summon this card and still use the bounce effect. The search is only on normal summon, but still it's fine. So that's my weird inclusion. I would really recommend trying this if you want to play a good hand loop version of this deck. Next up, triple Darkworld gates. Some people play 2, I play 3. I really found that I had Genta access often enough that I wanted the 3rd gate. It is bricky when you draw it in your opening hand, especially if you draw 2. But at that point you can probably just set 1 and do a danger, or just hard brick. This deck does brick sometimes. It is what it is with high level decks. You know, sometimes, I'll tell you about my locals in a bit. Sometimes you just lose. Next up, 2 Allure of Darkness. I opt for this over Trade-In because I feel I have too few level 8 cards. You could put Lava Golem in the main instead of Luma to go second better and to opt for Trade-In. I would not do that. This was fine at 2. It's just a generic draw card. It is kind of sad that I had a Fenrir in the deck and Fenrir isn't the dark for Allure. That's why I would recommend the Bestials, because they are dark, so you can banish them off Allure. They have quick effects, which this deck doesn't have, so going second, you're just doing break board. You can't really interrupt with the Bestials would help with. So I'd obviously recommend playing the Bestials in this. 2 Allure. 2 Ascension. For those who don't know, this is the fusion spell. This gets you to your Omni-Negate Grapha monster. You need a normal Grapha for it. and also it adds itself back from the grave by discarding a Fiend. Absolutely amazing card. You could opt to play one, some people do, and then just search it out with Snow. I often find that I also want to search Cerulli with Snow. Opening this is completely fine, because you play 3 Grapha, so you have a lot of ways to get to Grapha as well. And even if you discard it for a danger, you can just loop it back later in the turn. I would not go up to 3. I think 3 is overkill. I think 1 is too few. 1. Darkworld Archives, which is all hard ones per turn, so you just want the 1. You don't really want to open it, you want to search it with Snow when you're already far ahead. Other than that, it can sometimes help on breaking your hand by normal summoning a Darkworld, activating this and pitching something from your hand just to get the train going. And the last card in the 40, Darkworld Pop Tree. Now a lot of people don't play this in the main deck, they opt to play it in the side. What it does is you discard a Darkworld for effect, target up to 3 cards in any graveyard and you banish them. Important here is that it's any graveyard, so if you're really hurting for a play, you can do this turn 1, just to discard your own card and mill something or banish something from your own grave. It isn't great, but it can help. It's just great to set it during opponent's turn, discard something, banish up to 3, get the effect from the discard, which in case you have Grapha in hand is great because then you get a pop, then it's 2 interruptions. It also has a graveyard effect in which you can banish it the turn after it was sent to the grave, and you add a banished Darkworld back to your hand. So it actually helps with recycling some monsters from the banished zone that you might want back. This can be a Genta that you use, this can be Grapha if you need more Graphas, but this can even be Cerulli if your opponent has a way to banish your Cerulli, say with a Bestial themselves, because if the Cerulli hits the grave and they Bestial it, it's kind of painful because you cannot do your hand loop turn 1, so you'll have to opt to just build a board. Now to build a board, we're gonna go into the extra deck. 2 Grapha, you don't need more, you don't need less. If it gets destroyed, it discards 1 and summons back a normal Grapha. You always make this turn 1 and you almost always make this turn 2. Yeah, sometimes you brick, sometimes you get shifted, sometimes your opponent will drop a droplet. You cannot beat those cards, you have no call by the grave or stuff like that. And if you can, you will build to a Baguska with Salamander, Lumina and Mothman, or any danger that just gets a 4 out on a field. It hurts to do this, but sometimes you just have to wait a turn. Dweller. A lot of endboards can make Dweller. If you're playing against Tier or a mirror match, you want to make this, no matter where your first turn is going. Lugaris, you make this a lot. It's a Fiend that matters because of Muckracker, which we'll get into in a bit. Almost always you're using the draw to discard 1, which will trigger your dangers, fresh up your hand. All that good stuff. It's extremely cheap, so I would recommend picking one up. The only 8 I'm playing is the Hope Harbinger for negating spell cards. Also attack redirection, but that almost never comes up. This is the reason to play 8s for me. If I wasn't playing this, I wouldn't be playing as much 8s, I think. But if you want to go harder in a rank 8 pool, you could, and you could play the Ogopogo, the danger. Akashic Magician on summons bounces back monsters which it points to. This includes your own monsters. So 2 reasons you want this. 1, you want to bounce your Cerulli that you give to your opponent. 2nd, you want to make it so that you summon your own dangers to your extra monster zone down pointing. So when you summon it and it points to a danger, it gets to go back to your hand, because sometimes you just need another discard outlet. The 2nd effect is when it's co-linked, you can mill 2, call a card, and if you call it correctly, you get to add it to your hand. This happens with Security Dragon. When Security Dragon is made and it points to Akashic, you can target 1 card on the field and return it to the hand. I believe an opponent's card, but still. You use this to bounce the Cerulli, you use this to bounce the Cerulli. With these 2, you can get 2 Cerulli activations, which loops your opponent for 4 if you're doing it correctly. Then after you use these 2 effects, you can just go Akashic, declare any 3 of still remaining in your deck, and hope to God you mill it, because you'll mill 2 cards, and if you get to add of that, then great. It's even fine if you get like rainbows or Graphas into your grave. Next up, Muckracker. Muckracker discards 1 and reborns 1 Fiend. It does Fiend lock you, however, so you have to really wait with this. Sometimes you have to because you're bricking and it hurts a lot, but you're very limited in your plays once you have Cracker. Next up, I'm playing IP and I'm also playing Unicorn. These two are great, these two are fine, these two help in a pinch. Nightmare Unicorn is a fiend, which can help going second with the Cracker. Not much else to say about it. Sometimes I do IP into Appaloosa, which is up next. Which you always make because you just have a lot of dangers lying around with different levels. Just a lot of different stuff going on. Usually for 3 or 4 negates. At this local I was playing Nightmare Phoenix. Now I probably will be cutting this. I did not make it once. It is a fiend, but I've got a card in the mail that I didn't have before locals, which I'll probably switch out for this. Show that in a bit. You could play Phoenix if you would want to. Once you use Scaldred, it draws you 4 cards, you put back 3, and you can summon things from your hand, like Fenrir if you have to in this list, like Luna, or even Dangers to bounce them back to the hand. So both effects come up. The attack gain effect is usually not very relevant. Last card in the extra deck, Underworld Goddess. It helps you in a pinch, you can make it with IP Masquerena, and also it's a fiend, so you can do it after you muck record. Something I also sometimes do is use my Ceruli that I give to my opponents to link it off with Underworld if I really don't want them to keep cards and I have no way to bounce it. So say a hand loops for 4, my opponent will have 2 cards next turn, I usually have a Grapha at that point. You can make this with the Cerulis, make it so they only have 2 cards, have the Grapha negate, and this also has a special summon from Grave negate. At that point you should probably also just have your hand full of cards. Now before we're gonna go into side deck, we're gonna go to quick 2 cards that I would play if they came in the mill early enough. Sephiroth the Elite. I'll probably be playing this for the Brow. When Sephiroth is discarded, you can bounce a face-up card and summon it. It costs you 400 life points, it's once per duel, but this bounces your gates, this bounces your dangers, which is great, means you get to recycle them. It's level 4, so it helps with overlaying plays, and in a really bad spot you can even normal it, because again you don't have a lot of normals. I'm looking to cut something for this, it'll probably be the Blarow. And next up, the last card that I would probably play instead of the Phoenix is Giant Coach Trainer. 3 level 8s, it gives you 3 draws and it has a burn effect. The burn effect is relevant for time. I didn't have any time burners in my extra deck, which in big tournaments will come up. Again, this is easier to make with Ogopogo, but still you have 3 Grapha, 3 Rainbow, you have a lot of 8 dangers, you should be able to get into this, and even if you're not, you should be able to go into Suryuja and perhaps later go into this. This card is busted, this card is great, that's why I want to play it. It's a bit overkill, but still. Now, moving into the side, we have Feather Duster to Twin Twister. Discarding a danger for Twin Twister will proc its second effect, of course it won't work with Darkworld. You just need back row removal because you really, some floodgates just really hurt you. You really easily get out-monkeyed. I did play against, there can be only one, this local, and it really hurt me. I just couldn't get anything on the field because you're locked into having only one fiend. Next up, I was playing the 3 skill drain. In hindsight, I would probably want to swap it out for like anti-spell, but I'm not sure. It can be great, especially against matchups like Flu, because they have a really hard time dealing with skill drain. As well as this deck having so little back row that no one will ever side in back row, so you kind of want this going first. And your spell count is kind of high for anti-spell, which is why I was playing this at the first. But there were a lot of Pendulum stuff, a lot of Despia, so at locals it perhaps would have been better to just play anti-spell. At a bigger tournament or regional or whatever, probably this one. Again, this is very much personal preference, also a way of thinking about how you want your side, how many cards do you want going first siding, how many cards do you want to go second siding. Obviously the back row removal is going second, but the Twin Twisters can also be used for going first. This is a hard going first side, which is pretty self-explanatory. Then we got 3 Ghost Sister and Darkwood. A lot of people playing this right now. Yeah, it's just great in time, and sometimes you just... This deck is an extreme combo deck. I had turns that were more than 15 minutes, which I was really turboing. If your opponent also plays a combo deck, then the chance you will get to play a full game 3 is pretty much zero. So if you see this, it can just win you the game on the spot. And that is just why you want to play it. And also if you get salty because your opponent is extremely slow, this can also help get you there. And again, if you win dice roll turn 1, say you win the first match, you won dice roll and you lose the second, then on the third game you opt to go first. You could still just put these in if you want to, but your game plan at that point is pretty much make giant coach trainer, right? So you draw 3, hopefully, you burn once, hopefully. And at that point, if you can draw into more cards like these, then your opponent, even if they have anything on a crackback, you can just gain life while already at an advantage. So yes, it sucks that you sometimes have to play with the time in mind, but it's just how Yu-Gi-Oh! Is right now. And at bigger events, I would use it to your advantage, because your opponents will also. Triple Dark Rule. I've been contemplating this one a lot to swap it out for Evenly or Lightning Storm. Whatever you have on hand is fine, to be honest. I'm not sold on Dark Ruler yet. Mostly because the card I'm playing next is 3 Lava Golem. Now this card was absolutely phenomenal. Again, this is all going second, so if you want to swap something out for a Lightning Storm or Evenly, then you probably want these 3 out for Lightning Storm and Evenly, so you can have hands with both Dark Ruler and the Lightning Storm, not the Evenly, as well as Lightning Storm just being great for back row decks. What I might opt to do is cut the Twin Twisters for 2 Lightning Storm and leave it at that, but I'm not sure yet. That is my complete list that I played at locals, and also some of the things that I wanted to swap into. Now about locals, I went 4 in 1. I won 4, I lost 1. The one that I lost was my first game. I played against a Odd Eyes Pendulum deck, which literally just hit 3 dangers out of 3, which was why I lost the match. Things like, I had a hand at one point with 3 Lumina. I searched 1 in the previous turn, and I searched 1 on the turn then. And another card and the Danger Thunderbird, so I had nothing but activate Thunderbird, and of course he snipes it, in which my turn was completely dead. So I lost 2-0 against him. All the other games I won 4-0. I played against a Guru back row deck, a Cyber's Link deck, Despia with DPE and Dogmatica and all that good stuff. And the last one escapes me right now, but that was my locals. I was 3rd place. The winner of this locals was a Pendulum deck, so again, I probably should have played Anti-Spell in the main. Let me know what you guys think. If you guys do give this video 50 likes, I will be doing a bit of a combo video and a bit more in depth on how I choose things. A bit of a shout out as well to Daryl over at Zephyr War Games. I'll link his channel in the description. He does really in-depth deck lists of Darkworld with a lot of engines. So if you really need a card by card and a play by play, you can go over to his channel. Yeah, that's pretty much it for me. Peace, guys.